Hi everyone, I'm Irina Wise, RN, and I'm the student of Grayson College, RN GBSN program. I read the book Gang Leader for a Day, written by Sudhir Venkatesh, which was published in 2008. Venkatesh was a graduate sociology student doing research for his doctorate at the University of Chicago. The book tells the story of Venkatesh's field study at the Robert Taylor Homes, a massive public housing project in South Chicago in the years from 1989 to about 1995. Venkatesh became friends with the local leader of the Black King Gang, which sold hard drugs in and around a few of the 28 buildings of Robert Taylor Homes. The Robert Taylor homes were 28 identical 16-story buildings with 10 apartments on each floors and a total of 4,415 apartments. The 28 buildings were arranged in a group of three in a house in a horseshoe pattern with an open area in the middle. All the Robert Taylor homes were emptied and torn down from 1996 to 2005. The people who had lived there scattered around Chicago, but mostly in the inner core of South Side, where the urban poor remain. The vulnerable group that the book discussed was obviously the extremely poor urban African American people in a public housing project in Chicago in 1989 to 1995 time period. The book doesn't really tell anything about the healthcare problems of the resident. It's just a fascinating study of how the poor people who live in a project forget a community, how the drug gang took control of the building and sold their drugs there, and how the gang members and the residents adapt to live with each other. While the book did describe any health disparities for the poor people of the project, we are aware of the many disparities that poor people suffer in trying to access healthcare. In America, residents of impoverished community are at increased risk for mental illness, chronic disease, higher dental disease, and higher mortality and lower life expectancy. In 2016, a JAMA study by Rajat Chetty and others found a gap in life expectancy of 50 years for male and 10 years for female. When the authors compared the most affluent 1% and the poorest 1% by median household earnings after reviewing of 1.4 billion years of income observation. The cost of healthcare disparities may result from mistrust of the healthcare system, transportation challenges, food desert, and obvious the relative lack of money to pay for care or even to pay small copay. Cornell 2024. Some health disparities among the poor come from where they live. Poor high crime neighborhoods like the Robert Taylor homes cause chronic stress, which is bad for health. It is not unusual for poor neighborhoods to become food desert, where fatty lower nutrition, high calorie food are cheap, but healthy food are hard to find and expensive. Poor neighborhoods tend to be in the places where there are a few good jobs that would take people out of poverty. The poor have less access to cars and often have to rely on public transportation. They may have difficulty arriving on time for medical appointments. If they rely on free or subsidized medical care, they may suffer from long wait that are incomparable with jobs where they cannot miss work without being fired. The poor put off regular dental care and medical care that has to be paid for, and this leads to worsen the health problems. My healthcare recommendation to poor would be to prioritize good food and sensible amount, to not use tobacco, alcohol, or drugs, and to seek medical care and dental care if possible, as soon as they recognize possible problem. The book is a fascinating story of the Chicago ghetto and the people who lived there 30 years ago, but its usefulness to nurse is probably minimal except to nurse who work in places where the poor are regularly treated. Reading the book will teach new nurses why poor people often distrust health providers of all types, why poor people live the way they do, and why they make decisions the way they do. This may help new nurses adapt quickly to their jobs of caring for poor patients. The book may not have to a lot to teach veteran nurses who have been caring for poor patients for some time. A number of things surprised me in the book. I was not surprised that the residents of the project become a close-knit community who depend on each other, but I was surprised at how the residents adapted to the presence of the drug gang and how both sides try to keep the peace between them. I was surprised of how Venkatesh compare a gang drug business to conventional business. Venkatesh seems to be under the spell of JT, the gang leader, and actually admire him. I did do some researches on the Robert Taylor homes to find out the history of them. They were originally built in 1962 and were a decent place to live for a few years until the drug gang arrived in the late 1960s. I did some researches on how poor people get health care today, which include Medicaid, CHIP, state and local community health programs. It includes how hospitals are often use the routine health care by poor and how that affects hospital care for everyone. As to what's staying with me the most, I hope what I read shows that racial relations in the US are slow getting better. Uh, the other things that staying with me is what terrible damage illegal drugs do to the people. We nurses all see that if we work in a hospital, I wonder what can we do to reduce the use of illegal drug. We could improve the health of all people so much if we could eradicate illegal drug use. The book did make me sad in some places where women in projects suffer violence. The book told how prostitutes with pumps suffer about 4 times less violence from clients as freelance prostitutes. That was sad, very sad. The part of the book that made me almost cry was the description of the young mother who was passing out from her drug use and was carried back to her apartment where her 2 little children were sitting on their bed watching TV. But there were a few places where something amused happened, such as when JT would try to leave and to teach Venkatesh to reality of running a drug gang, and Venkatesh seems so clueless. Of course, my biggest lingering questions is what happened to the tens of the thousands of residents of the project when they were removed from the project. I was unable to find good answer to that. I wish someone would write about it. Were they able to find better living situation, or did they just go back into different living situation that was no better? I wish I knew. Thank you for listening to my discussion of Venkatesh book. It is a very interesting read, but it really doesn't teach much of anything about healthcare for poor. Caring for the health of the poor has been a huge challenge for all nations all throughout history. We may do a little better today in the US, but we have certainly not resolved the problem. I'm an optimist and I want to end on an optimistic note. Even if we have a lot of health disparities in US, I think we should remember that the amazing improvement in healthcare for the middle class in America has raised our ability to provide the poor with somewhat better care, even if there is still much to be done. Here is my listing reference. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.